It's no secret that getting yourself in the property ladder has always been one of the best ways to make some serious money. But is that still the case? With rising interest rates hovering around 6%,
it's never going to be the same as it was before. If you're the person that can overcome that, you're the person that's going to be the early adopter that really makes money.
people selling their homes and demand falling faster than supply, is it still really worth it?
And he's going to do like 100k profit on that for his first deal.
We need to find out. So in this episode, I sat down with long-term property developer Kazy. How long have you been doing this for now?
Probably like 11, 12 years now.
To see how times have changed and to see if it's still a liable business.
There's a lot of time wasters, there's a lot of people that will do their first deal when all of a sudden they're a guru.
With the current interest rates and the average house price being around £291,000,
You having those people around you is going to stop you making the costly mistakes that maybe other people have made on the way.
is there still a way for it to be profitable?
All of the above can drive you insane.
Let's find out on this episode of CEOCAST. Kaz, welcome back to CEOCAST, bro.
Appreciate you, man. Thank you for having me back.
It's been a while, man. I think we recorded our one in 2021, I think it was.
Wow, mid-pandemic.
Yeah. And then we've seen and bumped into each other since then.
A few times.
Funny story, I think the last time I saw you, I almost accidentally ran you over. But that's, if I didn't see you, then it'll be all right.
That was so funny.
Let me give people the context to understand. So I'm in Dubai driving now. Next thing you know, at a zebra crossing, you just see a guy whiz past in a lime scooter. He's just gone. He's just gone. And luckily I saw him in the corner of my eye, so I knew to stop. And then I was like, yo, I recognize him. And then I started beeping at you because I realized, oh, flip, that's Kaz. Let me.
So it's
I was
mad
thinking
funny.
mine was got run down.
It's like, the Dubai life. Bro's outside, he's living nice. So I'm not going to say the car, but he's in a very luxurious car. He just looked at me, he said, Kazy. I said, yeah. He said, what are you doing here? And why are you on a scooter?
Do you know what it is? You don't really announce that you go to Dubai. You see how I do. Obviously, I put it on my Instagram stories. You don't say nothing on your Instagram, so you're just there all the time anyway. You're there way more than I am. But obviously, just Instagram doesn't know that.
Yeah, I just thought, generally speaking for the socials, I think for me to continue with the socials, I've tried to and compartmentalize life. So I do my Instagram, do my property, but I don't really do the showcasing lifestyle side of things.
Yeah. Why is that though?
So do you know what? It was like, I just realized that we've been doing this for a long time. So like, I remember going looking for something. I'm looking for, I think, a picture of a car. And I'm going back and I'm seeing me and the boys in like 2012, 2013. And we're driving like all the Rolls Royce or Lamborghinis or McLarens or whatever it is. So I guess it's almost, it's great to see. But for me, it's like, that's not a sign of, oh, I'm doing really well. And I don't also want to push that narrative because I think there's a lot of pressure, particularly in like the black and ethnic minority community, that it's like you have to have things now, which I think is almost counterproductive to a lot of entrepreneurs' success. So I don't want to push a message that I'm kind of not really with, if that makes sense.
I was going to jump into this later on in the podcast, but okay, right now you've got PBK community, right? Yeah. Is that something that's paid or?
Yeah. Okay. So PBK community is a paid like WhatsApp group members community. And it's funny because I don't know if people go back to that previous video, which I think you should. It's a great conversation. So thank you for that. But like, I was very on the fence when it comes to education, particularly in the property space. Like there is, like, I'm not going to mess around. There's a lot of time wasters. There's a lot of people that will do their first deal when all of a sudden they're a guru. Yeah. But it was like, constantly people were reaching out to me saying, can you mentor me? Can I intern with you? And I didn't necessarily have the capacity or the time to do it. So the PBK community was effectively a way to service those requirements of people that are like, look, I want to learn more. And for me to find a way to really help them. And like, it's been, to start with, you're always a little bit unsure. Like, do I know enough? I could know more. There's people that have been doing it longer, but it's been amazing. Like the success stories that we've had, like, I mean, I can give you some examples, but I had some great success stories and loads of people in the group, like whether it's they've gone to doing, 5 deals in a year or doing their first deal or doing bigger deals or being able to do joint ventures. It's just really worked as a community rather than a casual fix it, which is kind of the way I wanted it to work.
The reason why I bring that up, right, is because relating it back to, what we just said about showing off lifestyle and all that sort of stuff, when people offer paid subscription models or selling a course of some sort, they always kind of like tie it in with the lifestyle that they live and kind of show that, I've had, I'm not guilty of it, but I've had, course sellers on or someone who does paid subscriptions on the podcast before. And if you go through the Instagram or not, they're always showing some sort of lifestyle, whether it be holidays, trips, cars, whatever the case may be, nice clothes, garments, etc. So they use that as a sales technique almost, if you will, you know, to try and pull people in to say, this is the lifestyle you can have. Obviously, they don't directly say that, but it is a subliminal message. It's implied, yeah. So if you're enjoying this podcast so far, make sure you drop a like and make sure you subscribe. The bigger the podcast gets, the bigger the guest can be. Without further ado, let's get straight back to the episode.
So my thing behind that is, because it's a community, I'm not trying to grow the biggest property network. Like, there's people doing £1 million a month. I'm not trying, I mean, everyone would love £1 million a month, but I'm not trying to do that. It's like really servicing a need. So people have been saying, look, can you help? I want to find a way to help people that understand that property isn't the quick lick. It's not a get rich quick scheme. For anybody that tells you that, it's a lot of nonsense. Like, it does take time, hard graft, and we want to put a support function in place for those that want to do it, but also are willing to put in the work and are not just having that shiny penny syndrome, like, oh, crypto, like, oh, Amazon, FBA, oh, this, oh, that. Like, it's not a get rich quick scheme. Like, you do have to learn, take the graft, but hopefully by having the experts, the people that have been there, done it, the people that are like amazing in their individual fields, you get that support function for those that it works for.
Yeah, it's funny because a lot's changed since we last done the podcast. Obviously, that was 2 years ago now. And it seems like in that time, there's been a lot of people who come into the space of property or trying to show like a, not get quick rich lifestyle, but showing that it's very, very easy. I've seen people come out of the blue, literally like that, and say, look, here's my property course, etc. What's your views and takes on it? On the way that it's grown and the way people have jumped into the industry?
Like, I like people jumping into the industry because I think competition creates, like, competition is what creates like greatness and creates change. So I'm not for like barriers where I'm like, oh, I don't want people getting into industry. I don't want people talking about it, because I think open conversations, but I think we have to be transparent enough to say that somebody who's been maybe doing it for a couple of years, they maybe still have value for the person who's just starting, and because they're closer, it may be really beneficial. There are a lot of people that I would say are like, you know, kind of charlatans and are kind of just selling a dream and selling a lifestyle, and they make way more money than they do from courses, than they do from actual property. And I guess that's the bit for me that's a little bit murky. Like, I always want to be a property developer first. Yeah. And if I am an educator, or if I am a content creator, or if anything else second. So I would never like name people or dig someone out, because I don't think that's my place to do. I'm not good enough to be able to say that, because I've got my own flaws, like I'm sure everybody has. But I just think if you are looking for education, you're going to spend your hard-earned money. So make sure you do the due diligence to make sure that that person is like right for you. Yeah,
to make sure it's all legit. Well, Kaz, like I said, you was on the podcast before, so I think the obvious question is, what's new? How's life been?
Life's been good. Do you know what? I think I've, in some ways, like, I guess I've not slowed down, but I take my time a little bit more, and I'm trying to decide what I want to do and when, because I think when we look at what the measure of success is, like, if you always look at it from a monetary perspective, there's unlimited money. So if your idea is getting the most money, you're never really going to be happy. Yeah. So like, at the moment, I'm learning to play paddle tennis. I'm having a whale of a time with that. Like, you know, smoking up the boys. If the boys are watching this, I'm #1 right now.
Paddle's the one where you hit the back wall something first.
Yeah,
and
it's like a...
They've got it in Dubai right next to Topgolf.
Yeah, they've got it everywhere. Like, it's massive in Dubai, and in Spain, it's getting bigger here. Yeah. But it's good. Like, if you kind of want to do good cardio, almost like a beginner racket sport, it's good. You can kind of just go there, pick it up and learn. That obviously got quite a few deals going on. So just finished 2 flats in Crystal Palace. Got planning in for 8 in Croydon, building another 4 in Croydon, 2 over in 2 in. New house, got planning for 2 new bungalows. So quite a lot going on. Like, it's, property is always about pipeline. Yeah. Because it's the sign of a bad developer, arguably, is a rich developer, because really that money sitting in your bank isn't working for you. Good, so you almost want it in and out. Like, you know, you don't even really want to see that money. Because
I remember asking you, you know, what's lifestyle like? And you were saying it's not as flamboyant as people would imagine, because your money is all tied into property anyway.
And it's like, a lot of the time, because you make money from you make money from money, it's harder to spend that money because you know what it can make for you. Yeah. So like, let's say, for example, you do a deal and you make £250,000. I'm not a car guy, but I'm going to guess, can you buy a Urus for £250,000? Yeah. So you're going to go and buy a Urus. But in your head, you're thinking, but I could take that money, and if I'm averaging a 30% return, by buying that car, number one, it's going to depreciate, and number two, I'm losing out on the money that I would make from it. So it's a catch-22. I feel like you have to get to a point where obviously you've got to spend and you've got to enjoy, but it's trying to find that balance of when's the right time for any sort of budding entrepreneur, full stop, to be honest.
Yeah. I'm going to get onto the buying and, you know, the deal making and all that sort of stuff. But before I do, I just want to ask, have you watched the podcast that we done back? And if so, when's the last time you watched it?
So do you know what? I'm really weird. Like, you know, seeing yourself on camera, like I find it, I'm like, oh, who's that guy? Stop talking.
Yeah.
So I find it hard to, like, so I did watch it back at the beginning.
Yeah.
Just to be like, let me make sure I didn't make a mess of this. And I've got to say, bro, you got to pull this down, man. But no, it was nice. Like, and I got a lot of compliments, to be honest. Like, a lot of people would say, oh, I saw you like on CEOCAST. Like, your channel's much bigger than mine. So like, I think it's definitely my most viewed video that I'm involved in. So again, thank you for having me on.
The reason why I ask is because, you know, I wanted to see if you could kind of spot any growth within yourself. Like, for example, I might watch a piece of content back from myself 2 years ago and be like, I'm so different compared to that now. Like, you know, mindset, mentality wise. So without you having to watch it, would you say there's been a mindset shift between you then and you now? Or any sort of changes in?
I'd say, the biggest change, if like people that know me, I was very anti-education. So the fact that I have a product or have anything or even have plans in that space is probably personal growth. That's come from understanding that actually, maybe from more confidence, actually you do have a lot of value to offer people, not thinking, oh, I'm not there yet, I'm not ready to do it. And I think the other side of it is actually being able to say no to a deal, because there's always going to be another deal. There's always going to be another opportunity, but there's maybe not going to be that time to go on holiday with family or to do X, Y, or Z. I think being able to put that happiness first has probably been like, you know, a big change.
A bigger priority. We're living in very interesting times right now, right? And I say that because at the time of this recording, interest rates are through the roof.
Yeah.
So the very first thing I want to ask you is, in today's day and age, today's market, is it still worth doing what you're doing? For you, maybe yes, obviously, because you know what you're doing, you probably know ways around it. But for someone like who wants to jump into it today, is it the same as it was before?
So it's never going to be the same as it was before. If you ask somebody when's the best time to buy a house, it was when you was in nappies because they were super cheap then. But there's always going to be things. So like, I think we spoke about this, I believe on the last podcast, we say, you know, if you go back 25 years, there wasn't, you know, buy-to-let mortgages. They were commercial mortgages and they had way higher rates. If you go back to sort of like, you know, when interest rates were in their peak, we're saying they're high now, they were in double digits. So there's always going to be a reason not to do something. And it's our job to find the reason or the way to be able to do it. Because when there's adversity, when there's struggle, if you're the person that can overcome that, you're the person that's going to be the early adopter that really makes money. You're going to be the one that prospers. Yeah. And I mean, you follow market trends. So whilst the buy-to-let market, the buy-to-let landlord has taken an absolute battering from changes in legislation to changes in interest rates to increased compliance and to further changes that are looking at taking place as well, we're still seeing that large institutions, John Lewis banks, are going into home buying in a massive way. They obviously invest a lot of money into research and development to find out how the market's going to go. So that's always a good trend to follow. But it's never going to be the same. You're never going to be able to invest the way your mum and dad did. You're never going to be able to say, oh, let me go and do things exactly the way people before me did it. It's our job as entrepreneurs to find a way to navigate through. And I think, you know,
give me that. Thank you very much. Fireway Pizza. You know, we love a Fireway Pizza around here. Make sure you get yours when you're watching CEOCAST as well. You can either order it or they've got hundreds and hundreds of stores around the UK, around the world. So chances are you got a store near you. So you can either go there or pick it up or go on fireway.co.uk and use the code in the description. You can get some good discount. But for now, we're going to have to resume this podcast in about 5 minutes, unfortunately. Sorry about that. But I'm starving right now and I need to eat. Make sure you lot eat as well. Look at the juice on the pizza. That's 10-10. I'll save this for after the podcast. So let's crack on. Let's get the show on road and we can enjoy this together after.
For example, in the buy-to-let space, people with the standard vanilla buy-to-let, they maybe were renting that property out for £1,100. Previously, low interest rates, their mortgage was £500. Nice, tidy profit. It's going up with capital appreciation. So it's a good investment. 2022, 2023 comes, they get their renewal letter. Shock. They're saying 3% product fee, which, you know, could be £10,000 added onto your mortgage at the end. And then their mortgage has almost doubled. So they're paying £1,000. Now they're getting £100 profit. By the time they pay service charge, insurances, whatever else, repairs, they're barely breaking even.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's about being dynamic. So what does the serviced accommodation model, like maybe switching to Airbnbs, maybe switching to a HMO, a house of multiple occupancy, or even looking at some of the assisted living, which are offering much more competitive rates. So I think if you're just sort of treading water and hoping everything will be fine, that's where the problem is.
So I look at the end consumer as well as the buyer, right? So your model, from what I understand, what I remember, is buy to flip, right? But you also do have a few HMOs and
so I've still got a portfolio of properties that I retain.
So naturally, as interest rates go up and mortgage rates go up for yourself, the rent's going to go up for them, right?
Well, this is, I think, a common misconception. Landlords don't have the capacity to impact the market like that. If the going rate for a 1-bedroom flat in Slough is £1,100, just because your mortgage goes up to 1,500, you can't just increase the price, because no one will buy it. So no one will rent it. So you've got to drop the price. But what happens is interest rates go up, which means home builders that were building buy to rent properties will find that, well, before we were looking to exit at 75%, now it's 65%. That scheme's no longer viable. So less homes are coming to the market. Then for the landlord that doesn't want to maybe be a little bit more dynamic, looking at Airbnb, looking at more efficient options to manage their property, or it's just had enough. They're like, interest rates are rising, I'm getting kicked left, right, and center, I just want to sell. They're selling their property. Now that's not coming back to market. So now you've got a shortage of properties coming to market in the private rental sector, which just means because of supply and demand, prices go up, as opposed to landlords just saying, well, we want more money.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I would have thought, because at the end of the day, if, as you said, 1,100 for the mortgage, 1,500 for mortgage, 1,100 for rent, you're at a loss at that point. So it's like,
so realistically, unless, so for example, you're maybe accidental landlord, couple gets together, let's rent out the previous house that we've had, it's not necessarily that viable, particularly because of changes in taxation. If the property is owned in a personal name, they may decide, look, done enough with this, I've made some money as it's gone up in price, and they're selling. But with those properties leaving the rental market and going to the sales market, there's going to be a deficit in properties, which means, we're saying at the moment, literally tenants are in a lot of cases almost having to audition to rent a property. Like, here's my CV of rentals. This is how much, not just, I'll take it, but I'm going to offer slightly less. The market is completely shifted in the rental space.
I suppose it comes down to general entrepreneurship, where in general entrepreneurship, you're always going to have some sort of obstacle, some sort of hurdle that you got to overcome. So, for example, if we look at it in an e-com space or a product space, cost in China might go up, and therefore your margins are going to decrease. This is kind of similar to that in a point where, mortgage prices are going to go up or interest rates are going to go up, and you got to find a way to counter that to make sure you're still profitable and you can still be a liable business at the end of the day.
Exactly. So I think if you are the sole property owner, there's maybe a limit to how much you can do. But if you've got to the point where you're building a portfolio, your risk is diversified across multiple assets. So you've not got all your eggs in one basket, so to speak. So although interest rates might have gone up in these 3 properties over the last 2 years, these 10 might have had rent increases that you kind of find it balances itself out. So overall, it's still, still quite profitable.
At the end of the last podcast, I remember you saying you turned over roughly about 10 million GDV. What's it like now? 2 years on?
So I think it was probably, again, numbers-wise, probably slightly higher. I think in terms of our current stuff that we're doing, let's say over the next 12 months, probably got another 5 million or something like that in terms of active projects. And that doesn't really include obviously in that we're just including stuff that we're buying, selling.
Are you saying that's within the last 2 years, or are you saying that's from toward the end of this year?
That's from sort of middle of this year to maybe towards the end of next year, depending on how long it takes for different schemes to exit.
Yeah.
But again, there's some stuff that's also very quick. Like, for example, might get offered something that we take on the basis that we're literally going to flip on, no work, or do a bit of planning and get that gain. So obviously sometimes you can do high numbers for lower profits because the work required, the risk required is a lot less.
What's your game now? Still buy to flip?
So Yeah, I think
It was buy, renovate, flip, isn't it? Right?
yeah. So basically, you know, the acronyms of BRRR, which people love.
It's going on forever
People
now,
love
innit?
an acronym,
Yeah.
BRR, HMO, SA,
all of
but
that,
it's any business, isn't it? We throw them around. It's basically buy, refurbish, refinance, and then rent, which I was basically doing. Not that, so not doing it, basically flipping at the end, so not refinancing, not renting, just flipping them. Now I've kind of pivoted again into my target outside of the existing projects is I'm looking for probably about 5 mini HMOs to do over the next, want to sort of say 12 months, just again to maximize cash flow. Picked up a couple, well, one last month, another one going through legals. And I think, again, it's about that work-life balance of if I can buy these HMOs and generally speaking, they positively cash flow £2,000 a month. That's £10,000 added, you know, in terms of your income or profits per month, give or take, which again is a lot more passive as opposed to doing those that were like, you know, constantly just flipping properties always onto the next one.
Yeah. Where was that property that we went to go see? Remember we made a video on it? In fact, we saw a couple, but one of the main ones that I remember, I think it was in Croydon because it was a 3 floors, I believe, and I think it was 2 apartments on each floor, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay. I don't remember which one it is, but it's like,
I'll have to show you the video too.
We'll have a look at it. But yeah, exit probably if it was 2 years ago, then it would have been something that we've exited. I'm not sure if it was where it was. It was Croydon, probably 4 flats.
I think it was something like that.
Yeah.
And here's what I'm interested in, right? So I was speaking to my friends saying, you know, what questions have you got? Because they're into property. I've got one of my friends who has an architecture business, so I thought I'd ask him as well. And one of the questions he wanted to ask was, these deals that you're finding, are you finding them yourselves? Because I know there's ways now where you can have agencies or other sort of deal finders, if you will, to find them. So what's the best way of going about trying to get yourself a good deal?
It really depends on obviously the size of who you are and what you're doing. Like people that are at a high level will employ like a land buyer and they go out there and find the sites. You've got multiple ways. So you've got, for example, some people do direct to vendor campaigns. So they use software like Land Insight that basically allows you to kind of map areas and see areas that have potential for development. You then contact the landowners directly. Obviously, by going directly, you cut out the middleman. So generally speaking, if someone wasn't maybe looking to sell or doesn't know the value, you can almost dictate terms more and you can be more flexible when it comes to maybe option agreements as opposed to something that's on the open market. It's like going to Tesco's and then trying to kind of negotiate with them. Like, you know, that steak, I'll give you £2 now and then £1 a week for the, do you know what I mean? It's like, so if you're going direct to vendor, you can negotiate a lot more. You can use sources, as you mentioned. Personally speaking, if you're a great sourcer, reach out to me because I've, you know, out of all the sources that I deal with or have dealt with, I'd say it's like 5% good, 95%, you know, are not necessarily there yet.
But you seem like a very good like sourcer yourself because I see your Instagram stories at times where you say, you know, this is the property that's coming up on auction. This is what I found. Yeah. And it's even some cases where you don't get it yourself, but you're just showing other people that the money you can make in it and all that sort of stuff.
No, definitely. Because for me, it's like, look, there's only so much like money. Like I can't buy everything, like not even close. Like I see stuff all the time. And I'm like, this is an opportunity here. And if I'm not going to do it, sometimes I'll just share that. And I think like the group is testament to that. So we had one of the guys, footballer, that had to retire early because of injury. He bought his own house.
He gets tore his ACL.
What?
Tore his ACL.
Always the ACL. To be fair, I don't know what this one was, but
shout out to you, bro.
Exactly.
I'm sorry.
But yeah, so like he bought his first property, but kind of didn't really know how to navigate in the space. So joined the group, and I was always like, "Bro, you're right. You don't really say nothing." He's like, "Yeah, I'm just taking it all in for now." And he was like, "Oh." So we do like group discussions. Where I'll be like, "I think this is a deal. That's a deal." And he's like, "But he's found his own one." He didn't, that one ended up going for more than he wanted. So he's like, you know what, trusting Kazy, like I'm going to go for that one. Ended up grabbing this property, won the bid, like a really good price. He's like, in terms of the group, we have our industry experts in there as well. So we've got like architect, solicitor, accountant, structural engineer, QS, like mains builders, like loads of people that you can leverage. So he's like, you know, using our in-house broker, our solicitor, our architect, one of our builders that we recommended. And he's going to do like 100K profit on that for his first deal.
Yeah, mad.
And it's like, just share it. First deal.
Okay.
So yeah, he's going to do 100K clear, already like in the process of buying his second one. Yeah. Obviously, that's the whole purpose of the group, to be like, you know what, you're amongst people that are really doing it.
Okay, so let me ask you this, yeah. So being in this group now, let's just say I got into it, you know, not knowing anything about property, because I think I told you in the last podcast, property background and all that. But let's just say got into it, found a deal now. Obviously, I don't know any builders, yeah, and you know, I built the studio myself. I could do that, but I can't build a whole.
Good, man. Let's just take a second, man, to take in the studio, the new studio.
Yeah, you know, I should have asked you on camera what's your opinions of it.
Nah, it's looking good, man. You got the feature panelled wall, you got the fireplace, you got the traditional bits, the CEOCAST.
Yeah, it's all the little touches.
Can't forget to mention the 100K plaque as well.
100K plaque, you know what I'm saying, right behind my head right there.
Exactly.
But my point being to all this, obviously, I can build this. I can't build a whole house on my own. So builders and finding the right team, are they in the PBK community, or can I find them from?
So we have like in-house recommendations. So we've got like, you can use my builders. Like I've recommended builders to other people, but obviously people have limited capacity. But it isn't that Kazy will do it for you. Like I don't guarantee people deals, but it's a case of people will come in and they might say, I've got, you know, a schedule of work from this builder. What do you guys think of it? 10, 12, 15 people might be like, oh, I think this, have you thought about that? Have you done this? Someone might say, I'm looking for a builder. How do you qualify them? And we'll have like, oh, look at this checklist. Like, have you asked them, you know, have you spoke to like previous like clients? Have you gone to see existing jobs? Have you checked them out on company's house to see what, you know, their cash flows like, etc.? Have you, you know, asked them certain questions about availability and expertise, etc.? So it's more just a case of you having those people around you is going to stop you making the costly mistakes that maybe other people have made on the way.
Yeah.
So it's like, if you want to build this studio now, you might be doing it and you might be fine, but rather than, say you get to a point where you got a bit of like maybe something to do, whether it's like doing the cladding or doing something, you might call your mate who's a builder, rather than you spend 5 hours doing it, getting it wrong, having to buy the material again. It's great to have that sounding board to ask questions.
All right, I'm just gonna go back to the studio design for a second. Yeah, I just want to get have your take on it of how much you believe I've spent on it. So studio side, as you see, but also I've done all the flooring, so laid all the carpet. Obviously, we've got the furniture there, we've got blinds, we've got AC unit, we've got loads of different things. Yeah, different things going for it. So all in all, how much would you say does it look like I've spent on it?
Well, if you got that panelling's quite expensive, you know, and you got your fireplace. Am I including furnishing in this?
Yeah. Okay, put it like this. This room was a plain white box room before.
Okay. AC unit. But have you done the work, or have you got someone else?
I don't.
You done the work, so you saved on.
I saved on the labour, yeah.
I think on 5K.
Not a bad guess. Not a bad guess. 1,800.
Okay, yeah, I know you're a deals man. I know
Deal
you're
man,
a deals
you
man.
get me.
Even he's hitting me up randomly to be like, where can I get a chair from? I sent him the link to Wayfair. He said, oh, no, I need to find a deal.
Straight Facebook Marketplace.
Straight.
But it's funny you say that. Wooden panels, bro, they're PVC.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's just like, I found that was half the price of wood. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to get that instead. And on camera, no one's going to know any of the difference.
No, of course.
But what was my whole point to this, all this? Yeah, so, you know, for someone making their first community. And what I was going to ask you is, these deals that you do put in your Instagram story but don't necessarily go for, what's the reason why you don't go for it? Is it because your funds are tied up anywhere else?
Yeah,
or
it's
because
just funds. Like, London's expensive, bro. If I had all the money to buy everything, I might not even be here. I might just be chilling. So, you know, and don't get me wrong, sometimes I put them up and sometimes I might say, look, if this deal's amazing and you're going to go and make 100K, I might say, you know what, like my fee for negotiating if I'm directly to vendor is X amount, and I make some money, you make some money, it's a win-win.
Yeah, because sometimes you got to weigh up the options, whether, you know, the amount of money you're going to make is worth the time that you're going to put in, and see if it's actually worth something. Because if you're making 100K over the course of a year, for you that might seem like that's too long. Do you know what I mean? Whereas I might be like, that's very good. So I guess it kind of depends on the level of scalability you want to take it.
I mean, it's all relative. Like, for everyone, a good deal to somebody isn't a good deal to somebody else. So it's like, if you turned around and wanted to borrow money from somebody right now, like from a bank, you're going to get a couple of percent. But like for somebody, for example, I don't know, who's active, like who has a load of money, but they're actively trading and make a large amount, for that to be attractive and it to make sense to them, it has to be a lot more. So I think it's all relative. And then in the other answer to your question in terms of why I do it is, sometimes it's like the process of actually being able to do the deal analysis. So I might put something up and even do very little research myself. Like, this looks like a good deal. What do you guys think? Because that whole process of going through the motions of doing your comparables, looking at what you think your build cost is going to be, what you think your cost of finance is going to be, you know, who it would sell to, how much you'd have to spend, all of these things is actually, you going through the motions is going to make you better as a property investor as well.
Yeah, 100%. It's going to give you more experiences. As experience goes on, then you get to Kaz's level. You know what I'm saying?
It's sneaky homework without really giving out homework.
Literally, how long have you been doing this for now? It's been a while, hasn't it?
I want to say at least 11, if not. I mean, in terms of how long I've been in property, probably like 11, 12 years now.
Yeah, so for people tuning into this podcast, you lot are getting free game right now, pretty much.
Hey, I mean, that's it. Like, the thing is, there's so much, like, the thing that I love about now is that there's so much content out there. And anything that I say isn't brand new information. Like, I'm not the guy who's reinvented the wheel. But obviously, time is money. So if somebody wants to sit down with you and pick your brain from someone who's got 100,000 subscribers, they could go and learn all of this stuff on YouTube. But to hear it from the horse's mouth from a person who's doing this in a very succinct way, like packaged for you, is people are paying for the convenience as opposed to just the information alone.
Yeah, because that's what I've noticed. A lot of people are lazy. Like the same way I, learned everything about, I didn't know anything about cameras or editing or anything about podcasts, it all comes down to research. And obviously over the years, I've then developed that to 100k subscribers, which now has, if someone wanted to learn, an extreme amount of value to it. But what I've noticed that there are some lazy people who are not willing to, not even in a bad way, there's some people who are not willing to put that time in to learn externally via YouTube or books or whatever the case is. They'd rather just go to someone like me, pay me X amount, whatever the case is, say, give me all your knowledge and all your information, which sometimes is a lot easier.
Yeah, it just depends. Like, everything is understanding. If you're gonna looking to learn anything, any new skill, you need to understand what type of learner are you and how you best digest information. Some people need to hear it, some people need to write it down, which is why some people it makes way more sense for them to do stuff that's very coursework based versus stuff that's very exam based. And I think understanding who you are is the starting point of before you even go out there and seek the education. Understand the way in which that you learn, and then you'll get a lot more value out of whichever avenue you choose to go down.
You mentioned something earlier to do with competition, right? Every business has competition. How is there competition in the property world? Because it's almost like individuality,
I mean, there's different types of competition. So there's competition in that, like, relatively in the property space, I'm a small fish in a big pond. Like, in terms of, there's people that have deep pockets, just, cash tomorrow. So I might go and see a property. I need to go and get a bridging loan. I need to go and look at like my source of funds, how I'm going to manage it. You're going against people that, cash, no worries, I'll exchange tomorrow.
Yeah, and there's also these big boy corporate companies that just snap up deals.
Like family offices, like people that are just like have a plan to, okay, we're going to buy 100 houses this year.
Yeah.
So, in that space, there's going to be a lot of competition. In the property space as well, in terms of the property influencer or social media, there's also a lot of like competition in that space. But I think doing like your own specific niche very well is always going to kind of allow you to kind of stand out in your space, because you are going to be unequivocally you, and nobody can be you the way you are.
It's funny you say that, because as you were talking about that right now and the way I asked you that question, I just remembered someone I know, a family member of mine, was going to buy a property literally about 5 minutes from here in Loughton. And the property is on that road. It's an expensive road. They were going for about 2.2 million.
Let him play with you. When I was driving down here, when you see the houses with the lights outside the house.
But you drove the other from the rich side.
Listen, whatever way I drove.
I came from the ghetto side.
Don't pretend. No, don't let him pretend. He say, I only spent $2,000 on my studio. When I was driving down here, Millionaires Row, I'm seeing the housing with the lights outside. When they've got the money to light up their tree, just to show you how nice the tree is. You say, okay.
Oak tree, 30 bags on the tree.
CEOCAST is living around here, man.
But no, look, what I was going to say is that there was houses on that road that are valued up about 2 million, 2.2, 2.5, right? And there was one house on that road which my family member was looking at. Completely run down house. The whole thing really and truly needed taken down and rebuilding back up, because it was in that state. But if I remember correctly, it was going for, or the starting bid was 900k. So obviously my family member was like, this is mad, because even if we rebuilt the whole thing and spent 1.6 on it altogether, the value of the house would then be 2.3. So you're looking at 700, 800k profit. But the issue was, although they were putting bids in, you have these big boy corporate companies saying, you know what, forget the little fish bid. We don't care if we're going to spend 1.2, 1.5, whatever it may cost. and just sit on it because they can afford to do that. They can just afford to just put cash in cash and outbid everyone.
And I think, look, that is the case sometimes, or sometimes it's the case that, you know, they're looking at it from a longer term goal. So maybe they're looking at it on the basis, look, if we buy this one, buy the one next door, we can now do a larger development where our GDV is way higher. Our gross development value, the value the property is going to be worth at the end, is way more. So it's comparative. And I think we spoke about it on the last episode in terms of, if I'm even on a smaller scale, if you're going to auction, you're looking at a 1-bedroom flat, it's completely run down for 200k. And you're looking at two 1-bedroom flats in that area are worth 300. You might say, okay, I can pay a maximum of 220. But if you got a little bit more insight, you know a little bit more, and you know that, oh, actually we can go up into the loft, we can turn that 1 bed into a 3-bed.
Yeah.
To you, it might be worth 400. So you can maybe go up to 250, 260. So somebody else in the room is like, oh, this guy doesn't know what he's doing. He's paid way too much money. But the reality is, it's all about what you're going to do and what your plan is.
Yeah, it's with my house, exactly. Yeah, I don't know if I told you this in the last podcast. My house, obviously, you've seen it. So we've got 2 loft rooms. One of the architects, before our second architect, he said we can only get 1 loft room in there. But simply because we had the second architect, you know, he allowed us to put another whole loft room in, which obviously is going to increase the value of the house. So now when it comes to selling it, it's worth more. Do you know what I mean? Because you've got more rooms in there. So I suppose it all depends on how you do it and who you find to.
I mean, that's why knowledge is important. That's why, whilst you can do everything without getting expertise, most people that want to go into specific vocations will go to university or go get some type of education, because having that education is what's going to make you the best in that field. Obviously doing it as well, but a lot of the time, outside of doing it, we pay for expertise. You can't be your solicitor, your accountant, your interior designer and your builder. You pay for people to do those because they've gone and paid money to be as good as they can.
Yeah. I want to correct something I said there. I said 13-bedroom house because I know that sounds mad, but that's if it's split into HMO. So that's kitchen becoming a bedroom, office.
Okay, that's,
A 13-bedroom house is a bit mad. Right now it's not that, but yeah.
Don't worry, man, he's living. It was him that had the house with the lights on it outside.
Oh, it was my one, yeah. Oh, yeah. Saw my car come out of there, innit? Yeah.
Exactly.
What was I going to say? So, speaking of like, you know, big corporate companies, is this something you wish for you to become, you know, your entity to become one day?
I've spoken about it before, and I said, like, you know, I don't necessarily want to be a big corporate company. Obviously, the bigger the better, the more opportunities you have. And I've spoken about, like, you know, over the last couple of years, we have looked at larger schemes. Like, we're talking about building, you know, 100 units plus schemes, or, you know, 50 unit schemes in prime London locations. And it's something that I want to do. But for me, I'm very much risk and reward and time balance and time management. And I think right place, right time. Like, I told a story of like me going to university. I went there because that's when everybody else was going, but it was the wrong time for me and ended up dropping out. Wasted money, wasted time. And I think in terms of when I've looked at these opportunities, I've done enough to understand when things are the wrong time. Like, I've been able to turn down, you know, millions of pounds of investor finance to say that, you know what, that's not something I want to deal with at the moment. I don't want to deal with that level of debt over here. I don't want to have that level of responsibility. But yeah, definitely I'd love, I think, in the next, like, you know, over the next 5 years to be able to say I've built my own tower in London and really kind of leave a further footprint in the space.
Yeah. What I'm interested to know, I remember the last time we had a podcast, you were saying that you weren't interested as much as developing out in Dubai. I want to know if it's like anything's changed there.
Nah, I'm not. Like, listen, you know my Dubai family. You already know my Dubai family. It's all love. I love visiting. I'm in and out. My business in Dubai is it's doing a lot better now in terms of what we were doing before.
Yeah. Had
some good events. Like, so we've transitioned into just doing like the packaging, into like events management. So I had some...
for quick one, for people who haven't seen the last podcast, let's give a quick recap on what the other business is.
Nah, man, we got to go get them views up on the other podcast so I can get... I'm trying to get him to take me out for a little dinner, so I got to get the views up on the old one. But no, definitely. So about 2 years ago, I set up a company in Dubai. We were focusing on like luxury packaging. So whether it be the equivalent of like your Selfridges bag, Louis Vuitton bag, etc., we provide those to brands, to jewelers, to, you know, all different types of luxury businesses in Dubai. And then went from there, building relations, into now offering like full services for when people have events and pop-ups. So we've worked with some...
As in like providing the whole branding and everything?
Yeah, so providing the whole branding for their event experience. So whether that be the setup, like the furnishing, like getting things right. So did some events with Sephora last month.
Oh, it's Sephora, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, big corporate
no freebies. I'm not the guy.
Yeah,
Go to somebody else
Yeah.
for the Huda Beauty. Did something did like an autograph signing with Khabib while he was out there.
Yeah, sick.
But obviously it's like we're just trying to build our space and our name, because a lot of the time for me now it's like long-term goals. So I'm not looking at trying to make a quick buck. I'm trying to get on all of the lists as like, you know, approved contractors so that we can go and do the big deals further down the line.
So this has come a long way from like a packaging company, because I remember you like at the time when we were done with the recording of the podcast, it was pretty much
that was the focus.
That was the focus.
Yeah, that was it. And I think
packaging,
because I didn't have the time to be over there, it was like, look, what can we do that's kind of hands off? Now taking on staff members that are actually going out there, actively looking at business, managing things, and hopefully it goes from strength to strength. So if you need event management, you need packaging, you need anything in that space, hit me up.
Is that why you're always out there then, like managing that side of the business?
Yeah, there's bits that I've got to do, there's meetings that I've got to go for, looking at, you know, some other stuff out there and other opportunities out there. In terms of the property space, like look, if you bought property in Dubai in 2020, you're laughing. Like prices went up sort of 40% in 2.5 years. Do I think that's realistic and sustainable? Unfortunately not. Like,
is that just because it's so volatile?
Yeah, like I mean, Dubai's had what, 4, 5 maybe market corrections in like the last 20 years. Like it in the UK we say, you know, it's not about timing the market, it's about timing the market. I think Dubai is slightly different. Timing the market is important because you do get these quite drastic swings. I think, you know, with a lot of new money coming in because of like geopolitical conflicts, with a lot of Russian money going there, Chinese money going there, you know, prices have shot up. Is that sustainable? It would depend on the political climate and what happens.
Yeah, it's dependent on external factors, basically, the whole property market out there.
And also, unlike London, it's like a nucleus. And I always say you can only buy, like if you can't afford in Chelsea, go to Fulham. You can't afford Fulham, you go to Battersea. You just knock on. Whereas in Dubai, they're always building new stuff. There's always the new hotspot.
Yeah, every single time I go to Dubai, there's always a new banner to say, this is the next big thing. I remember the last time I was out there, I was with Adam Rana, and he was showing me a new development that's happening in a place they're now calling Uptown. So they got downtown, they finished that, and now they're doing Uptown.
Look, they want to build another Palm. They've got obviously, you know, places like
the World Island flopped.
Yeah, the World Island didn't work, but then they got Blue Water. They did quite well.
Yeah,
obviously they got Caesar's Palace that are there.
They're building an offshore island now just for casino and a few other resorts, I believe,
and other stuff. And then you've got obviously like the new the port place where obviously all the new marina and stuff like that. So there's so much stuff going on. It's like you could buy in an area that's supposed to be the next big thing.
Yeah, and then it's so mad that we're speaking about this. It's like, it really made sense to me anyway, but just speaking about it just makes it more clear. Like I could go over there tomorrow, see a new project, and this is the next big thing. This is the next big thing. All right, cool. Take my money. I'm investing. Go back in a month's time, and there'll be another next big thing. So it's like
you can't. You have to. You can make amazing money buying off plan.
Yeah,
but it could also not through like fraud or for people not wanting it to work, but people invest money elsewhere. We talked about the big corporates. If you've got somebody with £1 billion saying, oh, we're going to make this new area, then you have somebody with 10 billion say, actually, no, I want this to be the new area. You know, you got to look at things, and it's like areas like JVC, loads of really nice apartments. It's quite relatively low cost for Dubai, but the infrastructure's not there.
Yeah.
And it's when is it going to come to make those prices go up to to reflect the quality of the accommodation that's there? Yeah,
because I was looking, so I was initially going to move to Dubai towards the end of the year. I could have and would have been there right now.
When's it happening, man?
Do you know what? I calculated a few things and I think it's not the right time yet.
Okay.
I'm definitely going to do back and forth ones to Dubai, as always, and you know, probably actually get an apartment there on rent this time. But before I was looking to buy, and I was looking to buy actually in JVC, one of the areas. I've stayed in JVC before, and you know, as great as the property prices are and you can get good value for money, it's just you have to go outside of the area if you want to, you know.
It's weird though, because it's like saying that though, and again, this is very Dubai specific, so the non-Dubai people, you know, they're gonna be like, what's going on there? But like in Dubai, you don't walk anywhere.
Yeah.
Like, so yeah, if you
bought somewhere, get run over by me.
Okay, I scoop places, but generally speaking, no one uses the lines.
no,
It's
of
just,
course, yeah.
it's just me. They're always available.
No, I always use them.
Oh, use them as well, yeah?
of
So you
course,
was
bro.
cussing me and you used them as well?
No, I wasn't cussing. I was cussing you for almost getting run over, bro. Looking when you're crossing. You just
Listen,
had the full throttle
I was
crossing the
full
road.
throttle, AirPods in, I don't know, maybe some new little Dirk, and I was just, you know what I mean, enjoying myself.
Yeah.
But it's like, you know, most people don't walk anywhere. So it's, you know, in Dubai, everything's 20 minutes away.
Literally.
So it's still the same thing. It's just that you maybe don't have, what you don't have is the Dubai lifestyle of looking out of your window and seeing these amazing views because you're literally just seeing, you're in the sandpit over there.
I don't mind that, but as in, I don't mind not seeing the lifestyle and all that, because I think if I'm living there, just like the area I live now, it's not in central London. I don't want to see central London every day. I want to live to, if I move to Dubai, I want to kind of live in the ends, as close as what the ends is going to feel like.
Then, bro, you're in the wrong direction. You got to take yourself down to Dira.
Oh yeah, no, that's different type of ends, bro. That's back home ends. I'm talking about like ends where, you know, people in the UK from, a lot of UK people live there and stuff, right?
Like,
So I still want the community.
Okay,
but what I do want at the same time is a lot of like corner shops, for example, or just normal different things,
bro,
right?
let me tell you something.
Go on.
You're complaining about the wrong thing. You're talking about Dubai where you can order a toothpick
That's
to
true.
come to your
That is
house.
very true.
Why do you need to go to the corner shop?
I get that I'm complaining about small things in Dubai, right? But it's like, you still, I don't know, man. For me, I still want a normal life. Like, I don't want everything so easily accessible in Dubai. Do you know what I mean?
Give me my toothpick on command. Give me my 25 options 24/7 on Deliveroo.
But you just get very lazy though out there.
Bro,
It's too complacent.
do you ever think though that like, I don't know, like isn't a degree of laziness the goal?
Yeah, I suppose, because it's almost like freedom comes with laziness and all that.
Because when people pitch these get rich quick or whatever schemes they are, not schemes, but like opportunities.
Yeah,
The buzzword that's often used is financial freedom.
yeah, 100%.
And realistically, what does financial freedom mean? Because is Bill Gates financially free? He's got obligations, but I think what people mean by that
Do
is,
whatever you want, whenever you want.
or work to be optional.
Yeah.
Like, so you have the freedom that if you want to turn up today, cool. If not, you have stuff in place that means that it carries on ticking. And I guess like, you do that with being able to have, whether it be a maid or a nanny or Deliveroo on tap, or like, these are things that they make you lazy, but it's because you can then go and put your energies into things that you want to do rather than have to do.
Yeah, but the thing is, it's a trap, because I can say this from my perspective, and I believe you could probably agree in the same position, yeah? At the end of the day, you're realistically financially free. You can be financially free tomorrow, right?
Yeah, I mean, someone that's homeless can be financially free.
Yeah. But I mean, you can, fund your lifestyle and all that sort of stuff without having to work actively every day. But the reason why you do work, the reason why we do what we do is because we enjoy it at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And it becomes a routine to a point where even if you're caking it and you're a multi-millionaire, you're probably still going to work just because you enjoy what you do.
Yeah, like I think you have to enjoy what you do. You have to enjoy, there have to be challenges, there has to be goals, there have to be things that you want to do. But that's what I'm saying. Like, you can take away, like, I think a lot of the job of an entrepreneur is to separate yourself from things that you don't enjoy. So from the mundane tasks, whether that be, but you may really enjoy going to the corner shop. I don't know what this relationship you've got going
do you know
on.
what it is? It's JVC is just almost like a very, very quiet area for what it is. It's very...
You like a little hustle and bustle.
Yeah. I like Marina where there's life, not lifestyle, life.
Yeah.
Just even if there's traffic and stuff like that,
No,
I enjoy that.
I'd call myself a Marina baby. I like Marina as well.
Yeah, Marina baby, I like that word.
Yeah, that's
a
it.
good one.
Because it's like with the Marina babies, we've been there from when Marina was it. And it might not be it for some people, but for me, Marina's home.
How long have you been in Dubai at any one time?
The longest I've been there. Like, I think in lockdown, I was there for like a couple months and stuff.
Excluding lockdown then?
I'm never there for that long, like this, but people think I'm there because I might be there for 4 days, leave and come back 3 weeks later for another 5 days. So in their head, I have not announced that I'm coming or going. So I'm just there.
Yeah. So what I'm trying to understand is just like from the times that you're away, whether it's in Dubai, whether it's, on another holiday, how do you manage business, when you're away?
Again, it's the team. So like now I've got VAs, PAs, an intern, like a project manager, etc. So people have their individual, areas that they focus on. So whereas before I was like the jack of all trades, like spinning plates. Oh, there's a leak, call Kaz. oh, we need to do a viewing, cool Kaz. Like, you know, there's a deal, like there's people in place, oh, there's an issue on site, cool Kaz. Whereas before, for example, it's just about upscaling to a point where if the deal makes more money, sometimes you don't have to have that money in your pocket. You can spend it to have more lifestyle, and that's your trade-off.
Yeah.
So rather than saying, you start to look at your time value trade-off more. And I think that's how I'm still able to obviously enjoy holidays.
Do you know, it's so funny? I'm smiling right now, yeah, because we're friends, I can say this. I think about these things in podcasts. I just want everyone to know, for everything you just said that right there is a long way of saying I've gone clear.
No, it's not. Don't do that. No. It's not. Because like,
it's a good thing, bro. Hold it.
No, because you know what's funny is like, there's just different types of problems, like different types of things that people have to hold you accountable for. So like, for example, in the social space, I'll get shouted at by my PA for like, if Simone hears this and she hears that, like, she'll be so happy that I'm making content because she'll absolutely rip me to shreds if I don't do stuff.
Yeah.
So like, you create that accountability in different ways as well.
Yeah, it's good. You got to have people that hold you accountable, because then you get things done and you know, get your content done. You get clips from this, and then your PA and all that will be happy saying, thank you,
exactly
you done your job.
Exactly. I'm here doing my job.
Kaz, what else, bro?
What's going on? What else is going on? I think, do you know what else is going on?
Go on.
I've done a little bit of like press stuff recently. I get asked like to comment on, you know, just what's going on in the market. And I find it interesting that landlords have never been some of the most liked people.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not saying they're the same as traffic wardens and bouncers, but like, you know, we don't get the best rap. And I think I've been speaking on like, whether it's like talks or whether it's like in interviews recently about that. And I think it's very unfair. Like, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think landlords are the bad guys. There's this conception that landlords are coming up and buying all the homes.
But I think, do you know what? I think that's because, you know, the mass media and the government and all that, they're all pushing for tenants to have rights. Tenants should have rights, right? 100%. But I don't know if I'm going to get cancelled for saying this, but not over the landlord, because they've still got, you know, a property to pay for and all that sort of stuff. And
like, I think it's a balance. With the changes in like the changes in like some of the tenants' rights, as you mentioned, I don't necessarily think they're a bad thing. But I think people's issue is they feel like the reason I can't buy a house is because landlords are buying them all up. Like, property prices are not going backwards. They're not going anywhere. And landlords serve a purpose of creating the private rental sector to give you options. So you don't all have to just live in certain places. So I think the landlord does play a very key role. Also, landlords make up a very small percentage of like, you know, homes in private ownership as well, outside of homeowners. And it's not everybody wants to own their own home. Not everybody wants to go and put down the 10% deposit. Some people would rather do that for other things, rather use that for other things. And we're, you know, in a generation where a lot of people look at it in a way that if I could buy a service, I would rather do that than buying the asset. In the same way people will, you know, like use Uber over buying a car. It's not because they can't afford a car, it's that they don't think that level of convenience is for them. They'd rather not drive. They'd rather just sit in the back, and they're happy to pay for that.
Yeah, fair. What about squatters' rights?
So squatters' rights have kind of changed a little bit. They're not what they were. I think squatters' rights are a bit mental, that you can, you know, just say I'm squatting in somebody's home that they paid
and they
for.
can't do anything about it.
Yeah, I think that's like, I mean, I'd love to have a conversation with advocates for squatters' rights. I think obviously there are arguments in that when people say, you know, people that are land hoarding, like they just hold properties on the basis that I don't need to rent it. I'm just gonna, you know, I think in an ideal world, no one wants to see like homeless people. We want to see them better utilized, and potentially powers that maybe after a 5-year period of, you know, a property being vacant, to say that it has to be forced to be used for something or something along those lines. But I think the idea that, you think about it, if imagine your mum called you or someone called you and says, like, I've gone to the house and someone's just turned up and they're living there. It's insane.
Well, you tell me this, you're a landlord. Tell me this, yeah. Let's just say you've just finished your property, for example, yeah, and your builders will go in there and be like, Kazim, we have a problem. Yeah.
Where are they from, by the way?
I'm pretty sure your builder's Indian, right? I remember I met them last time.
Okay, yeah. Just checking.
But let's just say he's got a problem. There's someone here. How would you feel? What would you do? In fact, have you had any situation like that before?
So I had a situation where I bought somewhere, the people got evicted, but they obviously must have kept a spare key after getting evicted. Fortunately in that case, I've come into the house, there, like the house is empty. Like the house is, wherever you said the studio was, it's worse than that because it's been ripped out, it's been gutted, there's nothing there. I've come into the house at maybe like 11 in the morning. He's there with his partner on a mattress on the floor doing whatever they're doing. When they're not,
no way.
bro. And I've kind of just been like, I'm going to give you 2 minutes and then I'm going to come back and obviously just politely.
2 minutes to finish up, you know.
To clothe yourself and just politely explain, look, like this can't go on. Obviously you've broken and entered, like I'm going to contact the police.
Yeah.
And obviously, like, so if people are breaking and entering now, it is like an offence. You can't just say I'm squatting there. So it is, you know, slightly different. But I think in any situation, it's important to understand what your rights are, particularly as they have pivoted slightly more in favour of the landlord. You don't want to go getting yourself involved in anything criminal. And it might hurt, like, you know, to be like, there's somebody in my house and feel very violating, but at the same time, you're a business person, and at this time you need to make sure you do things within the parameters of what's allowed.
Yeah, someone I know, it wasn't a squatter as such, but someone I know had a tenant that stopped paying rent. Now, due to the tenant rights, it took him 6 months to evict him from that property. And that whole 6 months, obviously, they didn't get a penny from the property. You know, they weren't paying rent at all. So they were living there, literally, the phrase, rent-free, which is crazy. And, you know, even in courts and all that sort of stuff, I think they had to go through several court dates just for the judge to then say, okay, tenant, you got to leave now. But the whole time they were saying, no, like, you can't do anything, mate.
Yeah, and
she needs a place to live.
It is, like, in that sense, the law is stacked quite highly in the tenant's favour. And what I'd advise any new or old landlord, make sure you're up to date with legislation and your understanding your obligations as a landlord. So, for example, if you haven't got all your certificates in place and you take them to court to try and evict them, that'll just get knocked back and they'll say, nope, come back when you've got them. So all of your things that are required, like your EICR for the electrics, your gas safety certificate for your boilers and gas appliances, you've given them the how to rent guides, you make sure you have an AST, the deposits lodged with a government-backed scheme that's either insured or custodial. You've done all the things that you require to do should you need to evict them. And when you do want to evict them, if you're not versed with serving like a Section 21 or a Section 8 notice, make sure you get that professionally prepared. You can now also use like the online accelerated possession process, which does allow for faster evictions. You still have to, from you get an possession, you still have to get a bailiff date if they're not willing to leave after that. So it is a long process, but you can mitigate that and reduce that by making sure you cover yourself. And I guess if you've done everything right at the beginning, it makes things a lot easier for you at the end.
So what do you think of the current property market and where do you see it going within the next 5 years?
I think it's a lot of stuff, for example, is out of the individual landlord's control, particularly with elections coming up potentially next year. You know, elections in the US, anything that happens in the US ripples into the UK drastically. That being said, interest rates have obviously gone up consecutively over the last 12 months. They have, however, you know, banks are competing for the buy-to-let money. Rates have come down. We are seeing rates now at 4.99%, which is, you know, low, and people are saying they're going to be at 7, they're going to be at 8. I don't see the market just, you know, we're having a massive recession. I do see a slowdown. I think there's going to be less sales. It's going to be more of a buyer's market. So if you do need to sell, you're potentially going to get a hit on price, but it's because of your requirement and need, as opposed to that really being the new status quo within the market.
What would you say it is right now? Seller's market?
No, so it's a buyer's market in that there's more properties out there to sell. So buyers can competitively offer more.
Okay, yeah.
And which is what obviously you read. If I'm talking to somebody and they're saying, what would you offer on that? I'm saying, well, if you're not really fixed on you have to have that house, go look at 10 and offer slightly below on all of them and see where, you know, where the vendors are.
Just play ball with it, basically, yeah.
Outside of that, though, I think if you're flipping properties, you need to be a bit more careful, because what's the market going to be like in 12 months' time? You have to maybe be a little bit more conservative on your GDV and end values. If you're holding property for the longer term, I think it's a little bit safer. I think interest rates are going to come down. You are going to see they start to cash flow better over time. But I think, you know, when there is any adversity, there's always opportunity. The most amount of millionaires are always made in recessions. So, you know, when other people are scared, that's potentially your opportunity to I don't want to say take advantage, but capitalize on the situation.
Okay, this is a good one actually, sent in from a subscriber. Who is the worst person or organization to deal with when it comes to buying or flipping properties, i.e. banks, lenders, agents, builders, etc.?
Oh, that was rubbish. You can't answer questions looking down at your phone.
It's sent from a subscriber, bro.
Nah, man, you're leaving right. I need to answer that question with your chest. Do you know what it reminded me of? Have you seen that interview of Kevin Hart and Funny Marco?
No.
So he's like doing a spoof and he's like pretending like he's like got a paper out like A4. He's like, what do you think the worst time to give a speech is? A, if you're ill, or B, in a headlock.
Yeah.
Just like...
Just mad questions. All right, let me see if I can remember that question off the top of my head. So who are the worst kind of people or worst organizations to deal with when it comes to buying a property? You know, is it banks, lenders, agents? What would you say in your experience?
It can be all of the above.
Mm-hmm.
Like all of the above can drive you insane. Agents through like BSing you and just telling you one thing and not, or maybe not even knowing what they're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Banks through making you jump through so many loopholes so many holes like and hoops that you think you're a circus clown.
Yeah.
And then solicitors from just dragging their feet and ignoring you and acting like solicitors will act like they're the girl on Instagram with 1 million followers and you're the guy bothering them in their DMs.
Yeah.
Overall, they can all be bad, but they can also all be amazing. I've, got amazing relationships with banks, with agents and with solicitors. But across the board, I'd say a bad solicitor can really do you in, because at that point in time, you're trying to sell the property or buy a property. Time can be key. You could lose a deal and lose out on all your potential profits, or they can make the legals take an extra 2 months, which could cost you 2 months in interest. Like my most recent project, if I go over 2 months, that's £6,800 a month, £200 a day. So for every day they're messing up, it's £200. So you're calling them and they're thinking, oh, you're just bothering them. They're costing you £200 every day.
Yeah, and they obviously they probably know that, but they probably don't, because it's not their money. They don't care.
It's like, it's accountability. So in terms of, if you're picking somebody like a solicitor, for me, I don't go to like what we call like the bucket shops, the big firms where they're trying to get you to do it all through a portal.
Mm-hmm.
I want to be able to call you and be like, look, what's going on with this? And you give me an honest response. I think integrity and just communication, that's what you need from any of those people, whether it be the bank and you have like a broker in between who can let you know exactly where you are, whether it be a solicitor or whether it be the agency. You want to make sure that they work in the same way that you work. Otherwise, you're just going to have problems in the relationship.
Do you use the same people or same organizations, whether it be solicitor, banks and all that, for all your deals?
So generally speaking, I use 2 or 3 solicitors. Sometimes we change just because some solicitors are on certain panels of certain banks. I've got relationships with banks and, like for example, with my broker, their business development manager is a good agent, good relationship. It means that we can get things done, maybe faster. But because the cost of money is so high, generally you're going who's best fit for purpose. So if I'm buying a property at auction and I know these guys are really quick and are going to be able to do it in the 28 days, I might use this lender over this lender. Whereas if these ones are a lot cheaper, but we got a lot of time, we might go for them. And then estate agents, my rule of thumb is if I found the deal myself, then I sell, like I list with whoever like I think is going to do the best and get the most for me on the property. Not just who says the most, but who I genuinely believe through market data, who's selling a lot, who I think has the right office structure, whether that be having sales progressors or the way in which they work with like clients as well. However, if an agent has found me the deal, it's like industry code that you kind of got to give it back to them to sell off the back end.
Is London still one of the best places to buy?
So in terms of is London the best place to buy? For me, yes, but it depends on what your goals are. Because if you're trying to maximize yield, then categorically no. Like if you look at a chart, a heat map of best yields, it's all going to be in the north, in like, the south of Wales. It's not going to be in London because the rents don't differ that much, and obviously you're buying properties for a lot cheaper. For somebody who's flipping properties, I can add a lot more value in London because comparatively within the local area, when people are doing their comparables, there's a higher density of properties, and then also like people that can't afford certain areas will come into your area, so you can increase ceiling prices a lot easier. So for somebody flipping property, for me personally, London's still, the best market in the UK. For obviously buy to lets, I probably wouldn't say that. But if you want a combination of the two and you're happy to go into the HMO space, serviced accommodation, I still think it's amazing.
Yeah, Kaz, I think that's pretty much it, to be fair. I think we've answered all the questions. Anything else you want to leave for your audience?
Anything else I want to leave?
Because don't forget, the last time we done the podcast, I think I was maybe on like, I want to say 10, 15k subscribers. Obviously, you know.
Now, M4. 100k. Own studio. Open anytime. Open keyless entry. We're living differently now.
We're living differently. Point being that there's an audience that's grown with the podcast, right? So a lot of people are going to be watching you for the first time, but you also still have, you know, viewers who remember, oh my God, that's Property By Kazy. I remember him 2 years ago. So message for all the people across the board who are watching, I suppose.
I think, message for people across the board is don't like, we go back into that. You know, one thing I've realized, I'm so bad at sound bites.
Yeah.
Like I could never, you would have to.
You got to do it on the spot once.
No, not that. Like, you know when people want a TikTok moment?
Yeah.
But I take too long to think and talk.
Okay,
So it's like, I'm not going to give you a TikTok moment. I'm going to give you a podcast in every question.
Yeah, but you don't realize that the podcast every question can be turned into like 10 TikTok moments.
I know, but I take too long to answer them. Like I'm like, and...
that's podcast problems right
exactly, there. Exactly, no, the podcast life. Question, sorry, remind me the question.
Go on, so like almost message to the audience watching.
Yeah, I would say like enjoy the journey. Like if you're always looking at your end goal, you're never going to be able to smell the roses and actually appreciate how far you've come. So enjoy the journey, look at the baby steps. Don't spend all your time thinking the grass is greener, chasing that shiny penny syndrome, like I want to run here, there and everywhere. Really focus on becoming great at one thing. And then once you've done that, go and focus on something else or take it to the next stage, or, you know, vertically integrate your business and look at how you can, you know, maybe do something that's complementary. For those that want to get into property, obviously my Instagram, all my social handles are Property By Kazy. You can find me on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram. I'm going to make sure that I put out more content because obviously set me a target only at 10k, going to try and get to 100k subscribers so I can get that pretty plaque just like
and do you know what the thing is as well? Your content actually deserves more subscribers. Because I've seen your content.
I like my content. I think it's all right.
Your content's sick, bro.
But I do need to push it. I do need to understand that I can't just be like, oh yeah, I've done it now.
Yeah, it's out there.
Anything. Like you can be a great cook, but if nobody knows what you cook, that, you know what I mean, they don't get an opportunity to try it.
You got to market it right, basically.
Yeah, so I've got to definitely focus on that. At the moment, we're not taking new members for the PBK community. So what we do is you have a mailing list. You join the mailing list. As soon as we open, you get first refusal. So like if it does sound like something you're interested in, join the mailing list. Link is in my Instagram bio. I sound like such an influencer, but it is what it is. Again, I always appreciate all the people that support me like in my journey, because it's been amazing. On the days that I feel like this is long and I sit down with someone, they're like, oh bro, you helped me buy my first house. I think that's so sick. So appreciate all the people that reach out to me with love. And yeah, man, just send in love. Hope everyone wins.
Oh damn, I thought you were going to put another link in there, OnlyFans one or something like that. I thought that was coming next.
Do you know what? You know, that was my first plan. Like pre-pandemic. Like, yeah.
So?
No, that was my first plan. So when I first started on Instagram, I was going to make an OnlyFans called Property Porn, which was like the subscribers only model. Yeah. It was no porn. It was just like going to be, but all the like us creating the properties, doing things, doing deal analysis as a subscription-based model, and do it as kind of like a niche, something different. Because at that time, OnlyFans really wanted other content creators and were trying to move away from the adult content. So that was actually going to be what I was going to do finally.
Because you know that's the title of the podcast now, isn't it? Property developer becomes OnlyFans. What is it? Property developer.
You don't love a clickbait,
OnlyFans.
You're going to kill me.
Property developer turns to OnlyFans. That's a good title.
Do you know what's so crazy? People are going to have to watch the whole episode to find out that it was just an idea about creating back office content that had nothing to do with adult content, just, you know, a way to service subscribers. I even want to avoid using words like service right now.
Flip it out. Listen, Kaz, I'm going to leave all your links in the description anyway. For people who have just stumbled across Kaz, make sure you check him out. Drop him a message on Instagram. Join the PBK community, or at least sign up to the mailing list. And until then, I'll catch you on the next episode of CEOCAST. Kaz, I'm glad you could join me on this episode, man. It's been a good one.
Thank you, bro. Thank you
for having me.
Appreciate it.
So yes, solid, bro. Thank you for tuning into this episode. If you want to watch another one that you may like, make sure you click up here. Or if you want to check out the playlist for the other podcasts, make sure you click here. And click up here to subscribe to CEOCAST.